Hey everybody, welcome back to the basement. Welcome back to the layout. We are going to be checking out a new locomotive here that is visiting the layout from my buddy Eric from the Eric Trainman YouTube channel. Eric is currently working on a whole new train room. He and his family just moved, and he's got a huge train room that he's currently working on. And I recommend following Eric on Instagram. His handle is right here. And he's posting updates of what he's doing in that space. He's completely refinished it right now. He just finished painting the ceiling. He and I are working on developing a track plan, and he finally has access to that track plan now, so he can begin to manipulate it a little bit and adjust for the space and his own little customizations, but look forward to seeing that project come to life. Now, since he can't run anything, he was able to loan this engine out to me, and it's sitting right over my shoulder here. This is the Russian Decapod, and we're going to check it out right now on Chris's Trains and Things. All right, now this engine's from the 2023 Big Book. This is the one that had the big boy in it as well as the Dreyfus on the cover. Really popular catalog when Lionel released it, and these were in there as well. Now this is a previous MTH tooling. This is one of the last ones that we're going to see, I believe, from Lionel that they had purchased from MTH. And so really very detailed already because it's coming from MTH, and now it's going to have all those great legacy components inside. And now, unfortunately, because of the size of the boiler, they were not able to fit whistle steam inside of it, but they did add a swinging bell, and that's one of the standout features of this locomotive. Now, it does have the giant tether underneath the drop plate between the tender and the cab, and so because it's underneath that drop plate, you don't see it all that much. It's honestly not that, I don't think it's that big of a deal. They did the same thing on the 06Os from a year or so ago, and they did Strasbourg 31, same idea. So these are great locomotives. They have some electronics in the tender, and they use that tether to be able to access all the things that are happening in the locomotive itself. But great features, really cool locomotive. And now this one that we have here is the Philadelphia and Reading version. There were a lot that were cataloged, and we're going to dive into the catalog in a bit to see what those were. But these did MSRP for $1299.99. Now, we're just a couple weeks outside of the York show, and these were available at York for right around $1,050, $1,100 or so. So that price did come down for the York show. They've gone back up as they go back into those retail stores, but maybe we'll see them back in the fall again if there's still some hanging around. Really cool locomotive. So let's check it out. All right, so first question, why is this called a Russian Decapod? Well, we've had a number of Decapods released from Lionel in the past few years. First, we had Strasbourg 90. Now, while that was released first, it took a while to get delivered. Then we had the Russian Decapods and the I-1s also. The I-1s are a Pennsylvania Railroad Decapod. And the Decapod, Deca meaning 10, we have 10 drive wheels here. And it's a 210O locomotive, this Russian Decapod design. Now, they're called Russian Decapods because these were being built in the United States for the Russian State Railway. And in 1917, there was a little thing called the Bolshevik Revolution. And when that took place, all the remaining orders that were waiting in the shops in the United States that had been built were stranded here. Those weren't going to go over to Russia, so they ended up being picked up by the USRA and then designated out to different railroads. And that's how we ended up with this locomotive and why it was dubbed the Russian Decapod, because these were built for Russia. Now, you might be thinking, do trains in Russia run on the same track that they do here in the United States? Well, no, they don't. In fact, they actually had to adjust them a little bit and fit them with some wider tires and so forth, and change a couple other things to make sure that they would fit the standard gauge railroads here in the United States. But really neat locomotives, light when you think of it. They're 207,000 pounds. So that's the locomotive weight. So that's actually not all that heavy when you think about big steel locomotives, but they did have a tractive effort of 51,000 pounds. Now, that's not that much either, and a top speed of 55 miles per hour. So what that tells us is that these were not made for mainline heavy freight service. So, that's not what we're going to use here when we're running around the layout. We're going to run it around with some steam era boxcars and a bobber caboose and just have some fun with it. But neat little locomotives, and there are still a few surviving today. In fact, there's an operating one, the Frisco 1630, which was done in this catalog. And in fact, the whistle, and I believe bell, was recorded at the museum where 1630 resides. Now, I think Lionel missed just a few of the specific details on 1630. One of the cool things on 1630, if you look at the catalog photo, is that it has the doghouse tender, which as a Pennsylvania railroad follower I just think is super cool. But they did miss, I believe, the visor over the headlight. Shifting over here to a side view, one of the cool things about these locomotives is that boiler is really small. And so you can actually see right through the back, just as you could on the real one. And in fact, they did a really nice job hiding some of the drive gear. Now, the drive box is here, the gearbox is here, and the rod kind of comes up here, and the motor sits in here, kind of in the firebox. But they did a nice job keeping this all open so that you can actually see through, just like you would be able to on the prototype. We've got really nice drive gearing, but I think the highlights of this locomotive in this model is all the detailing along the boiler. We've got these handrails, which you don't see on many locomotives. These handrails that come down and along the walkway. You've got diamond plating on the walkway as well. And then all the different pipe detailing. We've got lines that are running from the steam dome for the whistle, and the bell, and so forth, and different add-on detail parts that we'll get a little bit of a closer look at. As we slide down here to the tender, you'll notice we've got some great chain detailing here on the side of the tender. We've got chains on the trucks as well. We've got a simulated coal load in the tender. You can see the drop plate is here, which is a nice detail that comes from the MTH model. We've got a wireless drawbar here, and it's wireless because there legit is no wire or IR sensor. But the tether is just below that drop plate. You'll see that black line. That is the tether that you use to connect the locomotive to the tender where the legacy and electronics live on this locomotive. One of the other cool features on these are the very back of the tender. We've got this huge platform here on the back, and then we've got this light that's got the number boards there on the side as well for the rear light, which is really cool also. Now, looking back at the catalog, the versions that have the bell out front, like 1630, do not have the swinging bell. The swinging bell, can't operate when it's hanging out in front of the boiler or the smoke box. So what other versions do we have? Well, we have an Erie version. We've got a Seaboard version, a USA version, Philadelphia and Reading like we have here. And then we have a Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern version with the red cab roof and another doghouse tender, which is pretty cool. So, looking at these models, there are some road-specific details, the placement of the bell, like on 1630, where it's hanging up front, the doghouse tender. We also have a different style headlight. Some of the headlights are there in the center of the smoke box. Others are raised up, like on the Philadelphia and Reading version, we have that headlight raised up, kind of in a much more old-fashioned style. And so these things are really cool. If you look at the tenders also, the Seaboard version, the Minneapolis Northfield version, and the Erie version do not have that large platform at the back of the tender, just like the Philadelphia Reading and the USA versions do, which is pretty interesting as well. So really cool models. Again, a new tooling for Lionel, but an old tooling for MTH. These are 18 inches long. They can run on 042 curves. And again, they do have the swinging bell, unless you are looking at model 1630. They do not have whistle steam though, so that's just something to keep in mind. So great model here. Let's go ahead and send it around the layout. Stay tuned for viewer mail.
Train 1 brakeman, let's get an application for continuity test. Good application, okay to release. Train 1 brakeman, we have good set, good release, good continuity on timetable train number 1. Over. That's a roger. Dispatcher, clear signal on the cab, we're underway. Over. Copy that, out.
All right, it's time for viewer mail. So today's viewer mail is from JC's Trains on YouTube. John shot me an email, and I apologize, it's been a little while since that email was sitting in my inbox, but I finally got into it. And it was in reference to the York video that I put out with some information about the York Train Show. And his question was, what is the white whale that you're looking for at York, or are you part of the Trains Anonymous group with RJ? Well, really was trying to be part of that Trains Anonymous group. Now, I do have a white whale locomotive. I'm looking for an MTH BR44. That's the German style locomotive that MTH made as part of their European series. It's the black boiler with the red drive gear. They are extremely difficult to find for a reasonable price. The Brownings have one, and I offer lots of things for it every time I see them.
Henrik, wir müssen rechts raus. Schon wieder eine Überholung? Sieht so aus. Mann, mit dem Zug brauchen wir nachher ewig, bis wir wieder in Fahrt kommen. Dann musst du halt ordentlich Dampf kochen. Ja, willst du schon einheizen?
So that would be the one that I'm looking for. But again, I'm not going to spend an arm and a leg for one. I'm hoping to find one at a reasonable price. And I don't expect to find that, unfortunately. So really, that's the only white whale that I have at this point in time. I've been fortunate to collect a lot of the things that I've been looking for. Obviously, I didn't find it at York because we're a week past York at this point. But I did pick up another GP30 and the big boy as well. So really excited about those things that I picked up. And that 2-pack add-on car for the Conrail OCS set, that's really difficult to find. And that was one thing that I was really hoping to find at the show, and I was able to snag it at the end of the day on Friday. So really happy with that too. So no BR44. I don't even think there was one at the show. It's not surprising. There's just not that many out there, and when they're those that have them aren't selling them. I can't blame them for that. So John, thank you so much for shooting me that email. If you have a question that you want to ask, or a video or a picture or a clip or something that you want us to add to the end of our videos here to show off your collection or your layout, go ahead and shoot me an email at CTATViewerMail@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.